So we'll have the last panel, student panel of the day. So if each of you can just briefly introduce yourself and just maybe state how you're engaged in some of the activities, whether it's kind of organization, other activities, what the community here has to offer. And then we'll just take questions. Anybody who has questions, either just unmute yourself, ask directly, or otherwise just type it into the Zoom chat and the students will monitor that as well. Go ahead.
I can start. My name's Tibra. I'm a fourth year in the department. I'm co-advised with Anker Singh and Marilyn Vandermeulen. Some of the things that I'm involved with on campus, I was on the e-board for the Black Grad and Professional Student Association, so I'm still actively involved in that. I work in the Diversity Programs and Engineering Office, which is an office that supports both underrepresented minorities and first-gen grad and undergrad engineering students. I've done some of the outreach activities, such as Girl Scout Engineering Day. I do graduate students mentoring undergrads. And I do a lot of things under the Office of Inclusion Student Engagement, which is where BGPSA falls under. And there's a lot of other organizations that I think some of the other panelists will probably mention that fall under the OISC umbrella.
I want to. Okay. So I'm Mariela. I'm a second year from David Putnam's lab. I'm from Puerto Rico, so in the U.S., outside the U.S. I have a fellowship that's the IMSD fellowship. I forget what the acronym means. It's Initiative for Maximizing Student. I don't remember. I'll look it up and mention it later. And I'm also part of BME, LGBMETQ. Jason is probably going to mention more about that. And so yeah, that's me essentially.
Hi, I'm Jason. I'm a third year PhD in Nelly Ondara's Puri's lab. Kind of like Mariela mentioned, I'm also in the LGBMETQ plus consortium of queer students in Cornell BME. I'm also involved previously in Q Grads, which is formerly known as Out in STEM. So it's like our queer graduate student community at Cornell. I can also talk more about, I was involved in a mentorship program. We actually have an LGBT resource center on campus, which is fully staffed with administrators and staff. That does a lot of programming for both undergraduates, graduate students, faculty, and also postdocs. So we have like monthly gatherings at the BRB with faculty and students. And outside of that, Tibra mentioned OISE. I also served on the Graduate and Professional Student Diversity Council for the past 2 years, doing just like broad programming for all of the different diversity inclusion-based organizations on Cornell's campus. And the last thing I want to throw out is that I also am involved in diversity programs in engineering. So Nelly's lab actually hosted the Curie Academy last summer at Cornell. So it was a week-long program and we brought in over 40 plus high school girls, all juniors and seniors. And we actually designed a 5-day lab module for them where they actually got into the lab, did experiments, data analysis, made observations, and also made presentations. So that's something that our group has been involved very extensively each year that I'm happy to talk about as well if anyone has any interest.
Should we open it to questions or?
I also want to mention that while we are representing like a select group of organizations, there's also, I know, like FIGLI or FIGLI. It's a new organization. It's for first generation students, and there's a community for almost everyone at Cornell. So if you haven't heard anything yet here that you identify with, we can connect you to the people in the department that are definitely involved in those.
So it looks like we have a question. It says, what support is there for underrepresented students? So I think one of the major offices is the Office of Inclusion Student Engagement, and they support all underrepresented students within the graduate school. So that would be OISE, which is the acronym that Jason and I have mentioned. And they actually have an umbrella of organizations that support different minority groups. Diversity programs in engineering, I guess, would be the more specific office that would support specifically underrepresented engineering students. And they support both grads and undergrads. And under that umbrella would be like Society for Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, SHPE. So all those like sub-engineering specific organizations they support. I think as far as fellowships are concerned, like I have what's called the Sloan Coleman Fellowship. And that fellowship is specific for minority students in STEM who are pursuing PhDs. So the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation is a national organization that supports students that qualify. And Cornell has a specific fellowship for every Sloan scholar they have. They match that fellowship with the Coleman Fellowship.
Yeah.
So the next question, was it difficult joining a research group with people from dissimilar backgrounds? So my lab's actually really diverse. I think almost all of us are a minority in some way. So it wasn't difficult, or in both my labs are that way. So like Marilane's lab was all female for a long time. And then Anker's lab has a lot of different people from varying backgrounds. So I didn't find it difficult, but I'm not sure about other people on the panel.
For me, it wasn't really an issue either. So like before the current first years in my group joined, our group has always been like very well balanced. So we always have more female PhD students than male. And I think at least half our office in my first year or half my research group was directly involved as staff in diversity programs in engineering as well. So we had good representation, and it was something that I think when I approached my PI initially, it was something I prioritized was like, am I going to be included in this environment? So that's where I actually had like a discussion about it before I committed officially. And that's how I got like affirmation that while like my advisor herself, you know, doesn't identify as like LGBTQ, she's definitely supportive and has done everything in her like power to make sure that I'm well supported throughout my time. So that made it pretty easy about joining, even though like I guess we're dissimilar, but we're all still pretty diverse as a whole.
Yeah, my lab, well, is like not super diverse, but it's still like, you know, a pretty large mix of backgrounds and people. I mean, like diverse in the sense of how you would think diverse would be. But I didn't find it like really difficult at all being able to like mesh with them because I don't know, I think everybody like just brings their own experiences to the table. And so I think like it didn't really affect whether or not how diverse the background is, even though, yeah, it was still like pretty diverse. And just like I mentioned for the first generation students, I know, I think OISC recently has like started a student organization that's specific for like first generation students. So I think you definitely find that pretty interesting. They probably have like resources for handling like your family or like people that like don't understand about that.
Yeah, I would say, so I'm not a first generation like undergrad college student, but I'm a first generation PhD student. Mm-hmm. And like my family, my parents specifically don't really completely understand. So we just have a lot of, we talk about it a lot. So like even with this COVID situation, I was telling my mom that I'll probably be writing a review paper. And she was like, what's a review paper? So I was, explaining that to her. So I feel like oftentimes with family, it's just, you have to be patient. It is difficult because they don't understand like why you can't come home for the full month of winter break or like why you have to go back so soon and things like that. But I think it's just being open to having conversations with them about it and trying to explain it to the best of your ability. But the organization, I think it's called FEGLI is like the acronym for it. That's the first generation and low income graduate student organization under OISE. So I think the next question was, what exactly does a fellowship entail? And I think that varies fellowship to fellowship. So like the Sloan Coleman Fellowship I was talking about, that came with 3 years of funding. So stipend as well as the student health plan. It also include that particular fellowship also includes $2,000 of professional funds every year of your fellowship. So like those funds could be used toward like conference travel, getting a new laptop or something to that effect. I know I also have NSF, and they also have varying things. I think Jason's probably looked into it more, so he could speak on it about what NSF offers aside from like, you know, stipend and tuition and the student health plan.
Yeah, so it's not like directly, because I think like NSF is like that more broad fellowship that all people that are eligible that can apply for it. But since a lot of the application is focused on like broader impacts, which entails a lot of outreach and especially working with like minoritized students, NSF actually gives graduate students on it two main opportunities, I think. One is that you can actually get paid to do internships outside of your university. So they'll actually place you with like a host lab, or maybe you have to find a host lab, but you get a supplemental stipend that basically gives you the resources to conduct that internship. And I know for NSF, they also have an international research program called GROW. They have a list of host countries. So I think like Ireland, maybe Singapore. There's like a whole long list of countries, but basically you can write a proposal with a host PI abroad. And if you're funded, you get your NSF stipend, which is just like the standard rate, but slightly higher. And you also get like an additional salary from the host institution. So you basically get paid twice in a sense. And that can range from almost like a 1 month to like 1 year stay abroad. So there's a lot of benefits in terms of having like these fellowships that can supplement what you do in your research activities.
Yeah, as part of the IMSD program, they fund me for 2 years, and besides that, they also provide like mentorship. We like get together every week, and we like either somebody, for example, has a presentation, they'll like practice with us, or we do like journal clubs. They point to us like resources that we might need. It's also part of a HHMI undergraduate like mentorship program. So there's also like mentoring like undergrads. To mention, like somebody asking if international students are eligible for MSc. Not entirely sure. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if anybody from the program is international. I can look into it. The way I was accepted into it, didn't directly apply to it, but I can see if international students would be eligible for like that program.
Maybe Jan can comment on that, because I know he's heavily active, and most of these fellowships are nominated by the department because they're internal Cornell fellowships, and we just got some of the awards just the other day. So maybe Jan can talk about the IMSD. I think it's got to be U.S. citizens and permanent residents, but I'm not certain either.
Yeah, I know I was like, I was selected for it, but so I wasn't sure if there are like other requirements that didn't apply to me.
For the new question, have you had any struggles being a minority / LGBTQ plus at your time at Cornell? I will say there have been challenges in that there have been other faculty who have made comments, that, they're never really fully malicious intent, but they'll say things like, oh, I don't know, I can't imagine what it's like to be queer, or things along those lines where you take a step back and you're like, a faculty member just say that to me. But the good thing is that in my time at Cornell, like I have like a giant big ass rainbow flag behind me right now. And I don't really think I can say the same thing for a lot of departments everywhere. And that's just not a BME thing. It's just like a department culture thing, is that for the most part, like all of us feel very included here at Cornell in our department. So like for me, when I was choosing a school, I knew that I had to be authentic self in all ways, both in the lab and in my community. So for me to like have my flag here and to like talk about BME brunch for queers in GroupMe, that's something that Cornell BME has really facilitated a lot of that dialogue and that opportunity. So like there are gonna, I think for LGBT community in particular, there's still always gonna be those challenges we face everywhere, not even just at a university. Like that'll always have its challenges, but I haven't felt any time here at Cornell BME that like I have not been supported in being like who I want to express myself as.
Yeah, like for myself and me personally, haven't had any like major struggles being, you know, like a minority or the LGBT. So like at least like when asked the question, if I really think about it, I might come up with situations that, oh, like that kind of rubbed me the wrong way or did like that, but at least it hasn't been like something, you know, systemic that's really like affected me negatively. It might be like, you know, like somebody might not know, or like they might misconstrue something, or they don't know that that comment is bad, but it's not something that I feel like, oh, like the department in general is like not a welcoming environment, or like, or the people from the top, like the faculty or something, like collectively don't support me. So like things like that, I really haven't had faced, like me personally.
Yeah, I would agree. I think anywhere you go, there's people you're going to have struggles being a minority person generally. I do think, like everyone has already said, that the BME department's really great about making sure that we feel supported. I think in my time at Cornell, I have experienced things outside of the department. And I think there's been like campus issues with undergrad students, and you're going to run into that. But I think everyone that I've talked to faculty-wise about like how I was feeling personally, I felt very supported. Like I said before, OISC and DPE are great resources to go to if you just like need to vent. Belinda's office is always open. And she's a great person to just like go talk to and be like, look, Belinda, like this is the BS that happened. I just need to yell at somebody really quickly and move on about my day. But I definitely think like you will run into issues no matter where you go. But I think our department does a really good job of making sure the minority students here feel supported.
And even though like these things do happen, it's out of your control. I think one thing I like to emphasize is that when stuff does happen to people, I like to think that in the community we're pretty like, we're not like forcing anyone to like unload their trauma onto us. But I think like once we find out that some like individual has like wronged someone in our department, we do everything in our power to help them out, and like there are measures and protocols in place to protect students and like get repercussions out of what things are said if they're not the right things to say. So there's also that.
I can answer the next question because last year, as part of the IMSD program, they sent the graduate students and the undergrads from the HHMI program to ABRCAMS. That's another acronym I don't remember the whole name of, but like, I'm sure you guys have heard. I'll look for the link of it later. But it's essentially like a minority student biomedical research. It's a huge research conference. And there I didn't do like direct recruiting, but I was mostly like helping the undergrads. Some of them were presenting. I think most of the undergraduates, I don't think the graduate students presented. So it was mostly mentoring the undergrads in that case. But it was still like a really nice experience to be able to like support them, talk to like undergrads from other institutes about like Cornell BME, and like just be there for them.
Yeah, I would piggyback. So DPE, Diversity Programs in Engineering, they oftentimes will allow graduate students to travel with them to actually do like recruitment at the table. So like I was actually supposed to go to the National Society for Black Engineers conference next week, but it was postponed. But oftentimes DPE will, like if you go to Jamie, who's the director, and say like, hey, I'm interested in going to this conference to help recruit, like they'll pay for like hotel and travel. And they really just require like a couple hours of your time to table, and then you can actually also enjoy the conference.
Yeah, and I've recruited on behalf of the grad school and DP as well, like Deborah mentioned, for out in STEM, so like LGBT students that were applying to graduate school. The graduate school at Cornell has a staff member, Anitra. She also has like a graduate ambassadors program that I'm also a part of, where students from all majors and disciplines will join. And she basically just sends every ambassador to a conference that they're choosing each year to do recruitment of students at like primarily like minority conferences. So SACNAS, ABRCAMS, like everything we've mentioned, she usually will have at least one person coordinated to go to that conference as a graduate student representative. And they pay for everything, and they give you a lot of free clothes. Ithaca, in terms of diversity, any bad experiences? Ithaca is a weird place because there's like the townies, which are like the locals, and then there's like Ithaca, half of it's like students. So like Ithaca itself is very progressive and very liberal because like we're a super huge college town. Diversity wise, I think we do really well because like the nature of like Cornell, like any person, any study, our international student population is like almost a quarter of the campus. And I think that you literally will meet people from all walks of life and around the world and just like passing wherever you go in the department as well. Any bad experiences? Other than like that faculty member that told me like I can't imagine what it's like to be queer, not really. In the city itself, it's like small enough that you'll see a lot of people around a lot of the times, but I wouldn't say like, yeah, no like bad experiences so far.
Yeah, to agree with Jason, like even outside of Cornell, I haven't had any bad experiences. Like the worst that I can think of is like sometimes people like won't take like my Puerto Rican ID as like a US ID, but it hasn't been like you know like I don't really pass as like Hispanic so often, but if you see my name, it's pretty obvious. But I haven't had any experiences of like you know like racist in like any other way, and like around Ithaca, like the worst is like that so far, at least like for me personally, and like that's just like in my experience.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe in general. So I feel like it's not the odds of something happening to you. And I mean, there are definitely are things that happen that maybe we don't know of, but like they're not very common. Ooh, we could do like I could do a whole panel on food and like which restaurants to go to. All right, Alex, what kind of food do you like?
Belinda, you should make that a thing, a food panel.
What is your like go-to cuisine? We can give you recommendations, or like if we don't have recommendations, we'll just tell you that now.
These grad students eat very well, let me just say that. I think Jason's whole motive of life is to make sure he hits every restaurant in Ithaca, which is a pretty good task to do. Although right now would be a bad task because, you know,
It's very hard right now.
very, very difficult. You can't even go in a dining facility.
There are great Indian restaurants in Ithaca. Yeah. I literally just had Indian today.
Alicia, for pho. Pho is amazing at, there's a place called Saigon Kitchen. It is very authentic.
Love Saigon.
But it's
and
always
BYOB.
Oh yeah, BYOB. They have real good food. It's so good. Let's see.
African food.
African food.
The
Ethiopian.
Yeah,
food.
We have Ethiopian food, yeah. Hispanic food. Okay, I'm gonna tell you Hispanic food. My judgment is I'm from Texas, and my food is like Tex-Mex. There is no like authentic Mexican food in Ithaca. However, there are many options as long as you don't pretend that it's like super authentic and you're happy paying like $13 for 2 tacos. There is options.
Hispanic food that's not Mexican, like there's not a lot of options. There's like a stand at the farmer's market, and then Mexican food. That's like Jason said. Yeah, I'd say like if the Ph.D. doesn't work out, I'll open like a Puerto Rican bakery and probably make a ton of money. I think somebody, international students, BME. I know I've seen like, let me see. There's a lot of international students from like China. It's a handful from like India, but like at least like you know I don't count as international, so I don't know.
We have a lot of Canadians that even though they live closer to Ithaca than I do, they are also international students. Farmer's market. Ooh, actually, so like I just trashed the Mexican food scene, but like the breakfast burritos at the farmer's market are really good. That is like my go-to thing, like a farmer's market burrito, get a bunch of like beans, a lot of cheese, basically whatever they can like pack into that burrito, just get all of it.
The fresh squeezed lemonade is really great too.
There's also a great place at the farmer's market that also comes to campus on the agriculture quad, which is like not that far from Weil if you work there, maybe like 2 to 3 minutes. They also serve like falafel and a lot of like gyro and like a lot of meats, and it's real good, but it only happens in the spring and fall, I think. the farmers market is also some home crafts. It's a lot of fruits and vegetables. So like for me, when it's like the right season, my partner and I will buy a crop share where they deliver groceries to our apartment or to a place on campus every week. So they also have like fresh produce, people do baked goods and like local honeys, alcohol, stuff like that.
Yeah, I also do like a crop share. Well, I did last year. This year I'm still deciding. And well, in the farmers market, they have a lot of farms. So like there's like a lot of options of like to get fresh produce here. And
tips for deciding between graduate schools: go where you feel supported and you feel the best fit with the mentors. If you do not have a good vibe with at least like 3 faculty, I would say, you know, we won't be hurt if it's not us, but like go where you feel like you have a good shot of having like a real supportive environment.
yeah, and like not just the mentors, like get a good chance of talking to the students, like if they seem happy, because like chances are you're going to be interacting more with like your lab mates than with your actual PI. So it's good that you find like a lab where the people that work there, and besides just the PI, is like also people like you see yourself working with.
Okay, we got a couple more minutes. I'm going to also just say this panel's been great as well. When deciding a grad school, and these guys will probably tell you, I've said it time and time again, I think it's also important, community. I just can't, like, I miss these guys. It's only been day 3. I'm about over this already. And so, you know, the biggest thing of my job is my faculty and my grad students. I feel like, you know, I've had tragedy hit in my own house. You know, my significant other had passed away last year, and, you know, having the sense of community and everybody just jumping in when times happen in your own world is amazing. I also have to say I have a work balance, life balance, and I think everybody feels that. I think that's also should be important. Your stipend is very generous at Cornell. These guys live pretty good too. I think those are big things. I mean, I think research will be research, but where you're going to feel like if you want that family community, I think that is essential to a graduate program. And hopefully we continue to build such a great program, because so far we've built an awesome one. I've been here since the day it was virtually born, and it's been awesome to see every year we keep building a wonderful, I'm adopting so many different students to our program that it's worked out so well. And I do get very, very sad when they leave and they go on and do beautiful things, but they always keep in touch with me. It's a requirement.
Deborah Wheeler, you next.
No.
One more year. We'll see what COVID does. But no, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Belinda was saying about community. As minority students, I think it's really important to find other minority students in the department. Like, we're going to keep it real with you and let you know like how we're feeling. So like at every university that you visit, make sure you are talking to minority students and really see how they feel, if they feel supported within their department. Because for me, when I came to visit, Belinda matched me with this amazing person, Monet. If you ever get to meet her, you will love her. But for me, it was refreshing to see another Black female in a department, because I hadn't seen that in any of the other visits. And talking to her, she told me she felt supported. So I know if she felt supported, if I were to come to Cornell, that I would also have that same support, and knew that I would be able to make it through the next 5 to 6 years in a PhD program.
Yeah, like Jan mentioned, if there's stuff that you want to chat about offline, not because like Belinda and Jan are here, but like it's like personal information that you don't want to like have everyone know about, reach out to any of us that you feel like you would be comfortable sharing with. And I think if we don't know, we'll be easily able to connect you to someone else that we definitely know would be able to help you in that regard.
The last thing I'm going to say before we sign off is I think the resources that Cornell has for mental health is essential. Also, you know, everything happens in our lives, and having that support, even outside the department, and having all those, you know, we have many Let's Talk sessions around the campus, so you don't feel like you have to walk into a hospital to figure out, you know, what's going on and get resources. So I have to say, Jan and I have a great team. You know, if there's issues, we've dealt with many different walks of life issues, you know, from students with cancer to switching of labs, and life happens. So being able to roll with it and being able to have that support is important. So we all have a story. All right, enjoy. It's a little after 3. Some of you guys have faculty. Jason and the team will put out their information into the group me as well. So I agree that sometimes these are sensitive topics, and if you want to reach out, please reach out to myself, or if you don't feel comfortable, any of these students will keep it confidential, so feel free to reach out to them. Thank you guys very much. Stay safe, safe and healthy, please.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.